Now, I know.
Now, this is from his book that's coming out, Seeing the Supernatural. Actual verifiable cases. He even has an actual vision of a Muslim woman whom God did something miraculous. I'll blow you away. I'll probably play that clip when I find it later, Lord willing. So go watch it.
Kirk Cameron, like you do, been on a show, real treat, good friend going back years. I had never heard the story about his sister. So will you just share that as one example of the kind of supernatural phenomena that you're trying to document in this book?
Kirk Cameron was a famous actor who became a devout Christian who worked with Ray Comfort. So he's a very committed evangelical. Look at the story of his sister, documented. Listen to this, crystals, everyone else, get blown away. Where do children go when they die, especially in the womb? Listen.
Yeah, his sister was pregnant, and she was at home, and she had a miscarriage, and she's devastated. She's, she calls her mother and says, "Mom, I've just lost the baby." And her mother said, "Well, go to the hospital, but whatever you do, not let them take you into surgery without first doing an ultrasound." So she didn't know why she said that. So she goes to the hospital. They're going to take her in and deal with the remains of this miscarriage. And she said, no, I need to have an ultrasound before I leave this room. So they're doing an ultrasound. And as they're doing it, this look comes upon the technician of puzzlement. She's confused. And she says, "There's a baby in here. There's still a baby." It turned out she was pregnant with twins.
You hear it? Twin girls, one of whom died. Listen to this. She had twin girls, one who died in the womb. The other one lived. Watch this. Listen.
And she didn't know it. And one of the babies had miscarried, but the other one was still in utero. So, my goodness, the doctor couldn't believe it. Oh, my goodness. So she gives birth to this one child later on, a couple of months later, and the child is healthy and child is fine. But when the child is little, a few years old, she comes up to her mom, and they never told her that she had.
The child is only a few years old. Child is a few years old. They never told their daughter she had a twin sister who died. Okay, listen, documented in the book.
Been a twin and so forth, that she was too young. They figured they'd wait until she was older to really explain everything. Her daughter got in her lap one day and said, "Mommy, do I have a sister?"
Sure.
And I'm like, "What do you mean?" "Well, I in my dreams, this girl comes to me and she says she's my sister."
Jared, her twin sister died in the womb. She's only a few years old. She never knew she had a sister who died. Her sister comes to her in a dream and says, "I'm your sister." Verified, documented experience.
And she wants to play and she wants to talk, and we have a great time together. And the funny thing is, she looks just like me.
Oh, man.
And like this is a kid that did not.
She looks just like me, twin. Do you understand what that means? That means in heaven, when that baby died, it didn't go to heaven as just, let's say, a less fully formed body. The soul went, and the soul now looks like her twin, because they were twins. The soul. Okay?
Know that she had a twin. Had never been told, and yet something was going on. And her mother said, "Does this happen often?" She said, "All the time."
All the time.
So what do you do with that? I mean,
all the time, my twin sister comes. She looks just like me, and she comes and she plays with me, entertains me. Why? A child. Because she's a child, she's innocent. So the Lord allows her to see glory until she grows out of it.
This is one of those spine-tingly things that you hear about, but it comes from credible sources. And you have to kind of weigh what could explain that kind of thing.
So you write, this is one of the early stories in the.
And now watch what he's going to talk about. Hospices. They took a survey at hospices, those who are dying. How many of them have visions, seeing the other side, seeing the door open to the other side? Watch her.
Book that Bridget, this is Kirk's sister, was at home when she miscarried, but she feels God gently saying, this is your daughter, you need to say goodbye, which she did through tears. And my wife had a miscarriage. I know how just painful that would be. I couldn't imagine having that. But then, she has this sense, the doctor says you're still pregnant. She's like, how does this work? Okay, the identical twin.
Did you hear this now story? Here's another story. Did you hear Nina's story? Her son Jack passed away several years ago. A handsome young man, late 20s. We've already shared how many people, independently from one another, even strangers, came up to her and her family saying they saw Jack in a white robe, alive and radiant. Now, notice her story. This is our sister here. Sam, a few months ago, my sister-in-law told me she saw Jack in her dream. But he was with another baby boy, and that baby was protecting Jack. Why? Well, I had a miscarriage before Jack was born, and I told her that's his older brother protecting him. So yes, I believe this. It hits home. See the story? Sam, a few months ago, my sister-in-law told me she saw Jack in her dream, but he was with another baby boy, and that baby was protecting Jack. Well, I had a miscarriage before Jack was born, and I told her that's his older brother protecting. So yes, I believe this. It hits home. Now, do you know why Nina didn't see it, but her sister-in-law saw it? Nina, I want to give you some wisdom. Why God did this. If Nina saw it, you could say it's her overactive imagination. She still gets sad and depressed because she remembers Jack and her baby. So her brain created this image. So you could say, that's just your mind. But when the sister-in-law tells her that I saw Jack and a baby boy, and the baby boy is protecting Jack, then you cannot say it's Nina's overactive imagination. Her brain created that image. It's simply hallucination. You see now how God works? And why did God do that? To encourage Nina, from an independent witness and source who didn't know that Jack had an older brother, right, Nina? She didn't know Jack had an older brother that you lost in the womb. Can you confirm that, sister? Before I move on? Right? See? So she must have forgotten. So thank you for filling it in. But forgotten. Thank you. She said this baby looked just like his younger sister. I was protecting Jack and didn't know why. I told her, did you forget that I had a miscarriage before Jack? Okay. She knew, but had forgotten. All right. Because she didn't make the connection. There you go. But again, why her? Because if Nina had the dream, you'll say it's her brain. She's depressed. She's sad. She's crying because she remembers Jack on holidays and birthdays, and she remembers the baby she miscarried. So her brain created this image, and it's not real. But when it's an independent person who's not thinking of Jack or stressed over Jack or thinking about miscarrying a baby, and she has a dream where it's a baby boy and he's protecting Jack, not the other way around, because he's older than Jack, and the baby boy looks like his sister, Nina's daughter, now you know it's not an imagination. And the baby boy's name is Michael, you see? She was floored. There you go. And right here, you had it here too, right?
But that moment, this is when I got the tingly eye. You described that she's 4 years old and says, I see her all the time, this twin, and she looks just like me.
Hear it? Kirk Cameron's niece, 4 years old, didn't know she's a twin, and her twin sister died in the womb. At 4 is telling the mother, I see her all the time, and she looks like me. She comes and plays with me.
Now, if this were an isolated case, I would not remotely be convinced. There's a lot of, I used to joke about having a twin when I was a kid, and I would just now and then name him Scott, which is the name of my son, interestingly enough. I don't know why.
Your
but,
son Scott after your other twin that didn't exist.
It wasn't
That's
named
interesting.
I didn't name him after that. I just used to do that when I was 4 or 5 and 6 years old. I don't know why. So if this was an isolated case, I could totally see why somebody would be skeptical. But when you
notice, if it's an isolated case, I can see what. No, you just heard another case that Lee Strobel did an interview. There are millions of these kind of cases throughout the centuries. Millions, right? Nina just gave you one. See that? It's not isolated. It's often. It happens more than you think. Now watch this, though. A study they did at a hospice in New York.
You have so many cases from people resisting sharing this, not trying to make money or get popularity out of it, comes to them at a cost. And then near-death experiences that people see a former twin, it's enough to pause and say something's going on. Now, we're going to come back to how we investigate the supernatural and at what point we say this is reasonable, there's a case here. But I'll
make sure to watch the entirety. I'm just going to play 5 more minutes.
I'm going to read you a line from your book that I think if a skeptic read this, they'd probably say, Lee, you're crazy. Here's what you wrote. You said the supernatural realm is as real as the physical world you see all around you, maybe even more so.
Did you hear it?
So what do you mean?
Precisely. The supernatural realm is more real than the physical realm that you see, because the supernatural realm impacts and affects the physical realm and works through it. Now watch the study about the people in hospice. Listen, because I've used testimonies of people in hospice, which is verifiable and widespread. Even now it happens. Just go to the hospice and ask.
By the supernatural realm, and how can you possibly say it's as real, more so than I can touch, taste, and feel?
I think we live in a world where we do see, touch things. We put things into test tubes, and we think that documents that this is reality, and this is the only reality, and so forth. When we get these peeks into the supernatural world that are corroborated, that have, this is not things that people are seeing and experiencing that's coming out of a subconscious mind, but we have external corroboration of these things.
External corroboration. Buddy, if I have to answer that question, because you presume to know what a familiar spirit is, I'm going to send you to Mike Winger, because the difference between a familiar spirit and someone that's generally sent by God, a loved one or an angel from God, is a familiar spirit will try to then ensnare you and enslave you to itself and then influence you to live in a way that is in opposition to God's will. That's how you're going to know a familiar spirit is trying to manipulate you, control you, earn your trust, to enslave you, and then inspire you to do things that go against God's will. Listen to this.
When that's true, then the idea that there is a realm beyond what we can see and touch becomes much more convincing. And that opens up what the Bible talks about. Is the Bible telling us the truth? Of the Bible tells us about all kinds of things in the supernatural.
Did you hear it? Here's another one. 2 testimonies, Annette and him. My mother had a miscarriage of a twin brother. When I was younger, I had a dream about him and told my mother about a kid that looked just like me. She started to cry and told me about my twin brother. See how common it is? Okay, now watch this one, what Annette said. When I was 18, I wanted to get married. Days before the wedding, my older brother, who died before my mother gave birth, so he died in the womb, her brother, appeared to me in a dream, told me not to do it. He was beautiful because he's alive and perfected. You see how common these stories are? Okay, let's finish this clip, guys. I hope you're enjoying it.
Realm. It's interesting in Revelation chapter 5, when Jesus is on his throne, the post-resurrected Jesus, it says there are 100 million angels worshiping him. 100 million angels. And you go, that's beyond what we have in this world. I mean, this is a realm that is more, I don't want to use the word magical, but more super normal than what we experience in this world. So I always go, I'm a journalist. I'm trained in journalism and law. So I'm always looking for, how do I know? What's the corroboration? Could this be something that is just a product of wishful thinking or dementia or all these possibilities? Well, when you look at studies that have been done, when you look at studies that have been done into the miraculous that are published in peer-reviewed scientific, secular, medical,
peer-reviewed scientific, secular medical journals by skeptics documenting evidence for consciousness after death.
Journals that are scientifically rigorous studies that indicate something from beyond this world is influencing our realm.
And he documents it all in his latest book, Seeing the Supernatural. Hopefully, I'll get a copy soon, God willing, and we'll talk about it. Now watch this part, guys. To leave full of joy, knowing Jesus is alive, and maybe, Lord willing, tonight I'll come back, talk about the angel being the Son of God.
When you look at the pre-death visions that people have, and how, one study of 3,000 of
pre-death visions that people have, a study of 3,000 of them. Listen.
Scientific, secular, medical journals that are scientifically rigorous studies that indicate something from beyond this world is influencing our realm. When you look at the pre-death visions that people have, and how, one study of 3,000 of those indicated that these are not hallucinations. They're not fantasies. They're not memories caused by grief.
Jared, they did a study of over 3,000 individuals who are about to die, a rigorous study, who had visions, and they were not hallucinations. They were not chemical corrections of the brain. They were not fantasies. Are you hearing this? Are you hearing it? Let's finish off with a bang.
They're not projections of the subconscious mind. They're not products of an overactive imagination, but there is external corroboration of them. When we looked at mystical dreams that take place in the Islamic world, this
exactly, he documents it, and it's been documented. Hundreds of thousands of Muslims have verifiable, actual visions, not of Muhammad, but of the Lord Jesus Christ or the Blessed Mother. And he mentions a few. Okay? I'll play some clips later on it. Listen. Here's another. My friend, she had a dream at the table. She says there's green grass, blue sky, and a large crowd. She said his face was too bright to see. But after I showed her the shroud, she said it was him. Or how about this one? My wife had a dream of all of our miscarried children. She was under a giant green tree sitting on the grass, and all our children that were miscarried were playing and talking with her. Exactly, brother. Jesus is alive. He's almighty. He's real. Death is not the end. Children inherit the kingdom. Jesus said the kingdom belongs to children. Notice, children, right? They die. They go to heaven because they're under the grace of the Lord Jesus Christ, covered by his blood. And they fill the kingdom of heaven because the kingdom belongs to the children, Jesus says. Okay, watch here now. Let's finish it.
This is a phenomenon that's sweeping the countries that are closed to the gospel. And yet Jesus' dreams are happening among Muslims, but they're not products of people's subjective, subconscious minds. How do we know? Because people are not going to sleep as a Muslim, having a dream about Jesus and waking up as Christians. These dreams are pointing them to something external, corroborative experiences in which
he mentions a story that I had played a while back, and I'll find the clip to it, where a Muslim woman has a vision of Jesus. Let me give you the gist of it. Listen to the story. There are two stories that he mentioned. I don't know in this interview, but I know he mentioned it at a church where my friend Alex went, and I believe it's in the book. And I believe it will be in the stream. I haven't finished it yet. But I'll find you the clips. We'll play it, God willing, maybe tonight. But let me tell you what these two stories, right? Two stories. A Muslim woman had a vision of Jesus, And in the vision, you know what she said? She goes, how do I know it's really you? Smart woman. You guys listening? How do I know it's really you? He then gave her a sign. He showed her a man will come to her in a marketplace. He showed her what the man will look like and what he was wearing. The next day, this is documented. She's in the marketplace. She sees the man that Jesus showed her in the vision, exactly the way he looked in the vision, wearing the exact same clothes. And he came up to her and he said, Jesus sent me to you to talk to you. That's the gist of the story. Lord willing, I'm going to find the clip. We'll play it. According to my friend Alex, that story is in his book. It's one of the stories he includes. Yep. And I knew about this story because I heard it a few years ago and I played it. I believe it was from the John Ankerberg show, but don't quote me on it because I can't remember everything. A few months ago, my grandpa was on his deathbed at home with my mother and grandma. At one point, he gazed at the wall and asked who the people in the room were. My grandma told him no one was there. No, they were there. It was heaven. Right? So there you go. Now let's finish it. A study done at a hospice. A study done of a hospice. Hospice is when they send you to die.
They learn about the gospel of Jesus. So that's what I'm looking for, is something that is beyond just stories that can be explained away as being fantasy, wishful thinking, dementia. I know you've interviewed J. Steve Miller, the expert on pre-death vision, several times, and I interview him for my book too, as well, Seeing the Supernatural. And he reports the case of this huge hospice facility in New York State, where they said to the people who were dying, because a lot of people were dying who have these kind of experiences, don't want to talk about it.
They're embarrassed. They think people are going to think they're crazy. They did a study. Listen to the study.
Deathbed visions, like, Stephen in Acts chapter 7, where Stephen, full of the Holy Spirit, the Bible says, before he's stoned to death, he sees heavens open up and he sees Jesus next to the Father. And so many people, this is so common. There are tens of thousands of documented cases in which people have visions of what is to come just before they die. They went to this huge hospice facility in New York State, and they said to the people, if you have a vision like this, not just a dream, but something that's beyond that, so vivid, so forth, tell us about it. We would like to know, because people get embarrassed. They think they're going to be accused of having dementia or something. So a lot of people don't talk about it. But they said, okay, 88% of them had a pre-death vision. 88%. And many of
them. 88% of the people in the hospice in New York State had a vision where they saw the afterlife, the door opening before they died. 88%. This happens all the time in hospices. It's so documented. Don't believe me? Go to the hospice and ask. One more time, listen, and we're done.
But they said, okay, 88% of them had a pre-death vision. 88%, and many of them are corroborating. I'll give you a funny story. I'm talking to Leslie about this, my wife, doing this research, and I say, man, this stuff about these pre-death visions is unbelievable. I said, if there were just a few of them, you could write them off as an anomaly, but there are literally tens of thousands that have been investigated.
Tens of thousands, man. What more evidence do you want? Jesus is real. Death is not the end of us. Heaven is real. Hell is real too.
And she said, well, you know about Al, don't you?
Listen to this. Now look at this story. He was telling his wife, Leslie, man, there are tens of thousands of stories of people dying, having these visions. His wife tells him, you forgot about Al? Listen to this. Al who?
Al, father-in-law. No, what happened? She said, Lee, don't you know what happened to Al? She said, just before your father-in-law, Al, died, he was in hospice. I went into his room, and he's all agitated. And he said, where's Marge? Where's Marge? And she said, what are you talking about? I said, where's Marge? And Marge was his sister, who had died a couple of weeks earlier. Nobody told Al because he was so ill. They didn't want to push him over the brink and kill him.
You hear it? He's in hospice dying. His sister, Marge, died several weeks earlier. They didn't tell him because they didn't want him to go into depression. Because he's dying, his sister's coming to him, and he's talking to her. But when she came in, he's like, hey, where's Marge? I was just talking to my sister Marge. Do you hear it? His father-in-law. His family's an eyewitness to this experience.
So they kept this from him. But Al was all agitated because he had been talking to his sister Marge, who was dead, in his room prior to his own death. And to me, that's the kind of corroboration. We have people who are seeing not just a vision of what's to come, but actually either seeing or conversing with someone who was predeceased to them, but they didn't know. That's corroboration.
See?
I thought your point in that chapter.
You see that? And now to conclude why these are not hallucinations, tens and thousands of examples of this. And we're done. Watch here.
Chapter was really interesting about why should we trust people who are dying? Maybe they're losing their minds. And you said you got nothing to gain when you're about to die. This is not about like trying to get something. So even legally, there's a way that a testimony can be given and written down that's used in a court of law. That's not when other kinds of might be considered hearsay in other circumstances. So I thought that was really
the court of law.
Do you hear what he's saying? These people are dying. They have nothing to gain. They won't get platform. They won't get interviews on shows. They won't make millions of dollars. They're dying. They have nothing to gain by lying about their experience. There you go.